Hey everyone, welcome to the next lesson in an introduction to WordPress plugin development. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at everything that we need to do in order to get a web server, a database, and PHP set up on our local machine so that we can begin installing WordPress and then ultimately writing our own plugins. Now, the first thing that we need to point out is that everyone watching this video is using an operating system that's either Windows, OS X, or Linux, or a variation thereof. In order to best handle that, we're going to look at three different packages, all of which that offer the same functionality, although tailored to specific operating systems. And the first one we're going to look at is WAMP Server. That's wampserver.com. This provides Apache, PHP, and MySQL, which is the database system we'll be using for the Windows operating system. When you download it, you'll be able to follow the instructions and have the environment set up on your computer. Now, the steps after this will be a little bit different depending on which operating system you're using, but I'm going to try to walk you through the steps in a platform agnostic way. But first, if you're using a Mac, then the tool you're looking for is MAMP, or M-A-M-P. This is MyApache, MySQL, and PHP. This is also available for Windows if it's something that you're interested in using. This is the software package that I'm personally going to be using throughout this course. However, it doesn't matter which package you use so long as you're able to get the software up and running on your local desktop machine. And finally, we have XAMPP, which is another alternative for installing Apache, MySQL, PHP, and even Perl, although we won't be using Perl in any of the courses or lessons throughout this course. Note also that XAMPP is available for Windows, Linux, and OS X. So you have a couple of options as to what you can install on your machine. It may be best to install all of them and to see which one you like the most, and it may be best to install the one that you believe is best suited for your environment. There's no wrong choice here. The only difference that you're going to see throughout this course are the administration and configuration screens that are related to our setup. However, each package offers the same options to configure things such as ports, directories, and whatnot. So you should be in good shape regardless of the package that you download. But as I mentioned, I'll be using MAMP to get my environment running on my local machine. So I'm going to go ahead and download it, install it, and then I'll meet you back here once everything is set up, and then we'll be configuring our environment so that it's best suited to installing WordPress and getting to work on plugin development. Okay. Assuming that you've set up WAMP, MAMP, or XAMPP, then you should have a control panel that gives you several different options as it relates to setting up your development environment. This right here is the control panel for MAMP. And although your screen may not look exactly like this, the options that I'll be changing are completely able to be found within your software package. You may have to refer to the documentation. However, we're not going to be changing anything complicated. The first thing that we want to do is that we want to change the default ports to the default Apache and MySQL ports. Out of the box, MAMP uses its own ports, and this is for security issues. However, since we're going to be developing only on our local machine, I'm going to use the default Apache and MySQL ports. So I'll select the option that sets Apache to 80 and then MySQL to 3306. Now, it's important to distinguish here that Apache is the web server and MySQL is the database. The web server is responsible for taking all of the requests that come in from a web browser, locating the resources on the hard drive, and then serving it back up to the browser for the user to see. MySQL, on the other hand, is a database where eventually we'll have WordPress installed and where everything that we create, including blog posts, categories, tags, and then maybe even some options for our plugins, are kept. They're not saved to a file on the disk, they're saved to a database. This provides a logical organization of the data, and it also makes it possible to quickly retrieve information to display on the screen. Next, you can select how you want to run Apache and MySQL server as a user. I've opted to run it as my user account, which is Tom McFarlane. And because I do so much work with WordPress, I like to start Apache and MySQL when my system starts up, and I like to go ahead and start the services when I'm starting MAMP Pro. As far as hosts are concerned, don't worry about this right now. Yours will likely only have local hosts, and that's fine. We'll look at setting up a virtual host a little bit later. In terms of modules, as you scroll down, you'll see a long list of various things to install or various things that are installed, and you can leave these exactly as they are. For PHP, the default version may give you some options anywhere ranging from 5.1.6 to 5.6.1. It's important to note that PHP and each of the versions listed here offers different functionality. Right now, at the time of this course, PHP 5.3 or 5.3.2.9 is the lowest version that is supported by WordPress. To that end, we're going to be using that. Although we will be missing out on some newer features of the language, this will not hinder us from completing any of the work that we set out to do. As far as the rest of the options are concerned, we can leave them the same. We'll leave the cache module off. If you have a debugger and you're familiar with this, you can activate this. However, this is beyond the scope of this course and we will not be using it. So you can leave this unchecked. In terms of what to log, I tend to be pretty aggressive. So I log everything from startup errors, warnings, and notices, all that happen so that I can get a deep look into what's happening within the web application, the theme, the plugin, or the project that I'm working on. But this is completely up to your discretion. Notice also here at the bottom, it tells you exactly where the log file resides so that you can open it in your favorite editor. For MySQL, we're going to leave everything exactly as it is. We're not necessarily worried about changing the password. We're not going to allow network access to the database. And it gives you some options on how you want to administer MySQL. For the end of this particular screencast, we'll take a look at exactly how to do that. Next, the dynamic DNS tab is not something that we're going to be worried about because we're only going to be working off of our machine. And the postfix tab is none of our concern as we're not going to be worried about setting up any kind of email system or sending emails via our plugins. So with that said, with the default port set to 80, the secure port set to 443, and the MySQL port set to 3306, we can start our server. Assuming everything goes well, Apache and MySQL should start, and you should have a green icon here that has now changed to stop. Now, depending on what platform you're using, you may see just a stop button, or you may see small messages located in a dialog box. Whatever the case, the most important thing is that you're able to start and stop the service. If you receive any errors upon installing the package, or if you receive any errors that are related to trying to start Apache, trying to start MySQL, or even something related to PHP, then you may need to refer to the documentation for your particular package. However, if you follow the installation steps and you haven't changed anything beyond what we've covered here, you should be in good shape. Now, with that said, some packages such as MANT give you the ability to test exactly what's happening with the web server and to test that it's running correctly. In this case, this is called MANT Web Start. So I can click on this, and it's going to open a browser window that will take me to a MANT homepage that's being served up from my local installation. Notice that will give me the information about PHP, gives me information about MySQL, where the socket's located, passwords, ports, things like that. It gives me some example configuration files. And then gives me other information related to my installation that I may need to use when configuring other software. If you wanted to, say, browse the database, then what you could do is navigate to PHP My Admin. This will bring up a database front end that shows you all of the databases that are on your machine. It will allow you to select one, and then it will allow you to see the tables as well as some of the information that's contained within there. And we may be looking at this a little bit later in the course, but if not, notice that this is where once WordPress is installed, everything is going to be kept and saved. So with that said, we're now ready to install WordPress. So in the next course, we'll download WordPress, we'll install it on our local machine, we'll use the configuration options as presented by our MAMP, WAMP, or XAMPP packages, and then we'll have WordPress set up on our local machine. This will prepare us to get ready to look at understanding plugins and then ultimately beginning to write our own plugins. But if you've gotten this far and you're able to land on the start page for your package, great. We are almost ready to install WordPress, and we're going to be doing that in the next lesson. I can't wait to see you there when we get started with setting WordPress up on our local machine.